Hi, everybody. My name is Kyle, and I am going to be presenting the USQ Writing Letters to Legislators workshop today. This is brought to you by the USQ Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and I'd like to thank everybody on that committee and everybody in USQ that helped out with this presentation. All right, to get us started, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be using some letters in this presentation that I've used in the past, and these don't necessarily reflect the views of USQ. The purpose of this presentation is to empower you to know how to write to your legislators about issues that are important to yourself. All right, so why you should reach out to legislators is because oftentimes we focus on engaging with legislators at the ballot box during election years. But if we really want to make sure that the people that we have as our representatives are working best for us, we need to be always engaging. That means knowing what they're voting on, what they could be supporting, those sort of things, not just during election years. And we know that this works because the most powerful lobbying organizations in the country are not necessarily the ones that have the most money, but the ones that can best rally people to quickly reach out to legislators and flood their offices with phone calls and emails and letters. Those are the organizations that have the most impact in the country. And that's how we know that reaching out to legislators works. It's not just about money. This advocacy really does make a difference. So there's a couple ways to reach out to legislators. You can do it by phone, you can give them an email, write a letter, which is what this presentation in particular is about. And then you can also visit them in person, which is usually easier with local or state representatives. Of course, you can't do that at the current moment because we are currently in the COVID-19 pandemic, but hopefully soon you'll be able to visit with your legislators again. And then finally, you can also use ResistBot, which is a tool for you to easily find out about issues that you care about and reach out to legislators. So give that a Google, check it out if it might work for you. All right, so there's a variety of people that you can write to. You can write to your federal legislators, state level, and people on the local level. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits and drawbacks of reaching out to each of those levels later in the presentation. Now, I'm going to quickly go to this site, which can help you find out who your legislators are. So 111 Marion Court. This is my fake address that I'm going to be using for this presentation. So as you can see here, I can see my local representatives, my state representatives, and also my federal representatives. Now keep an eye out for Ashley because we're going to be writing a letter to her later in this presentation. All right, so here's a letter writing template that we're going to be using for this. So as you can see at the top, it's going to start off with your info. Then it's going to have the date that you're writing it, who you're writing to with the honorable title, because, you know, legislators like that, good for the ego, and it's more likely they'll like what you're saying if you start off with a good note. And then the content of the email. And we'll go through that more thoroughly when we write a letter together. And then finally, sincerely and your information. So I am going to navigate to this document where I have started the process of writing a letter. So I've put my contact information at the top and on the bottom and signed it with my fake signature and the date. So we're going to start off by finding out where our legislator is and how we can actually write to them. So we do want to go to this page. And we're actually going to go here. So Ashley Hinson, we know this is her office, according to this. However, what we can also see is that if we go to our website, we can go down here to their office locations, and there's actually a closer office right there. So I'm going to, instead of sending it to the DC office, I'm going to send it straight to the Cedar Rapids office because that's the closest one to me. So I will post that here. One moment, sorry. Paste without formatting. And this is to the Honorable Ashley Hinson. All right, so she is a member of the House of Representatives, so I'll be putting Representative Hinson, and that my name is Kyle Scheer. Now in this section, we're gonna highlight an identity or a group that we're part of if it's relevant to the issue that we're advocating for. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about why this particular identity is important for the issue that I'm advocating for later, but I'm going to be highlighting that I'm a volunteer at Waypoint Homeless Services. So let's go there. Volunteer at Waypoint Homeless Services. And of course, we'll fix all the formatting at a later part. So I am asking to ask you to, so let's figure out what we're going to reach out to them about. We should probably know what we're actually reaching out about. So we're going to go to congress.gov and see what they're talking about. What are they doing all day? Who knows? Let's figure that out. So we're going to look up their legislation and let's see, State Department, boring, Small Business Act, dull. To require the Attorney General to issue guidance to law enforcement agencies as they respond to increased levels of domestic violence during the COVID-19 public health emergency and for other purposes. That sounds like a good one, HR 1034. So let's click on that. And we can see that the Democratic Virginia representative, Jennifer Wexton, is sponsoring that. And I want to encourage Representative Ashley Hinson to get on board and co-sponsor this legislation too. So I am going to put this information in, and for convenience sake, I have already done this. And I am writing to ask you to post this. All right. So co-sponsor the bipartisan HR 1034 and then this is the title of the legislation. And then you're going to want to do a quick summary about why they should support it. So as you can see here, I did that. I'm not going to read it out to you because the issue isn't important, but the formatting is. The issue is important, but not for learning purposes, just to make that clear. Domestic violence is important. All right, so I am asking her to co-sponsor the legislation. Now, as we can see on this page, we can actually look at the co-sponsors. And she's already supported this or co-sponsored this legislation for the purpose of this presentation. We're going to pretend like she hasn't, and we can see that here. All right, so now we're going to provide some supporting evidence about why this issue matters and why we think this legislation is good legislation. So I have already done some research about why this is important online. And I will be posting that here. And as you can see, I've included a statistic, which is always good. People like numbers. And then also another explanation on a personal level about why this issue is important. So I mentioned Friends of the Family in Cedar Rapids, which is a local domestic violence organization, specifically because that's in her district. So it's relevant to her constituents. Finally, I'm going to include a personal story. And this is where I bring up Waypoint Homeless Services because I've seen families that have been impacted by domestic violence in my role there. And that's why I mention it at the beginning. Finally, I'm going to do a summary of what I'm asking them, what the call to action really is. So I am saying, I urge you to co-sponsor HR 1034. Iowa needs you to support our local law enforcement's efforts to help curb domestic violence. So there we go. This is a letter to Ashley Hinson. Then you print it out, put it in the mail, make sure to stamp it, and send it out. Now you can send it to all of their offices, one of their offices. You can write one letter and then write it to both your senators and representatives. It's really your choice. But letter writing can be very effective. And now that I've shown you how to write a letter, I'm going to show you how to make sure that your advocacy is as effective as possible. So here are some rules of advocacy for you. So first, advocate locally. Federal legislators get inundated with a lot of letters, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. And the reality is that they will not read them personally. That they have interns for that. Interns are there in the offices to sort through those letters and let them know in the aggregate, oh, you got this many letters about gun control or LGBT rights or whatever it is today or this week or about this particular bill. It's very rare for legislators to read it themselves, but on the local level and on the state level, they don't get reached out to as much. They're a bit more lonely. So when we reach out to them, it's much more likely that they're going to read it and really take into account what you're saying. So if you can advocate on that local level, your advocacy is going to make a bigger difference. Second, advocate with a group. There are a lot of issues on the federal level that it's very important to care about. And when you do want to reach out to them, one letter is something, but if you can be part of a group's efforts and be part of 100-letter effort, so if they get 100 or 1,000 letters in a single day or in a single week, that's going to get their notice a lot stronger than a single letter would. So definitely keep that in mind, that you should join an association or a group that cares about the issues you care about and work with them to do your advocacy work. Finally, advocate about an obscure issue. Oftentimes, legislators have pre-written responses about whatever given topic you're reaching out about, and they won't have that if you're reaching out about an obscure issue. So for example, let's go to the beginning. This is from my senator, Chuck Grassley, regarding the Kavanaugh appointment. And this is the pre-written response about this issue because a lot of people reached out. However, if you reach out about a very specific issue that not many people reach out about, you're going to actually get a more personalized response. So just keep that in mind if you want that, personal aspect to it. So here's some next steps. First, start writing. We've learned how to write a letter today. Put the information about where your legislator's offices is in your contact information so you don't have to look it up every time, and start writing about issues you care about. Second, you're going to want to join organizations that support issues that you care about so you can know when things come up, when legislation comes up that you should advocate for, and work with them because they'll have resources about like facts, for example, that you can put in the letter, that sort of thing, which will make it easier for you to stay involved. You should, of course, donate to USQ to continue advocacy. And so we can keep putting on presentations like this to help people learn more about civic engagement. And then finally, tune into more DEI events. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee with USQ has sponsored a lot of great events, and we're hoping to do even more in the future. So keep an eye out for that. And we will show you how later with our social media. All right, so we are going to do a quick issue highlight, and I'm going to pass it over to Taylor with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to talk more about that. Oh, you're muted, Taylor.
Yeah, sorry. Hello, my name's Taylor. I'm in the DEI committee. So for this presentation in general, we just wanted to highlight the LGBTQ rights that are being put in question throughout the country and every level of government. Like if you go to the website listed below, it lists all the bills that are put forth by every single state regarding like anti-trans bills and even ones for trans equality. So what we are asking you as like DEI committee for USQ is to write the letters that you've seen throughout this presentations to your fellow politicians and everybody who's leading these governments, because USQ, we are an inclusive sport. We do welcome everybody, but with some of these bills, if they're passed, they're going to prevent various peoples of the LGBTQ plus community from playing in our sport and at least just living regular lives that we should all have and have the same rights as everybody. So if you look at the website, you'll find those laws and you can just write to these politicians about whether they should be against like the anti-trans bills or if they can even just sign on to the trans equality ones. because we all are, as a people, we all support the LGBTQ plus community, especially in Quidditch. So that's why us, the DEI committee, and I just want to ask you to at least look at the website and look at this growing issue that's happening within our country.
All right, thanks so much, Taylor. I appreciate it. And I definitely encourage everybody to go to that website and learn more about the legislation that's affecting LGBTQ individuals in your area. One moment, the presentation is loading. Luckily, there is one more screen, so we'll be okay. Thank you so much for watching this presentation. We really appreciate you being interested in reaching out to your legislators and getting more involved with advocacy efforts. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I believe this presentation will be going on YouTube, so keep an eye out for that. And you'll be able to find out more about DEI committee events and USQ events in general through these channels. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks, Taylor, and everybody else with the DEI committee. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and good luck with your advocacy in the future.